Yeah. Peter!
Segundo knows he doesn't have much time. The viper snake that bit his son is widely known in the jungle as one of the most venomous. Scared and in pain, young Richter is already showing the venom's crippling effects. His leg is beginning to swell at the location of the bite, and the pain increases as the venom begins to diffuse into his leg muscles. Without immediate attention, the boy could lose his leg or even his life. For centuries, hope could only be found in the incantations of a witch doctor or in the herbal remedies of the village healer. Although this practice continues, superstition is giving way to modern medicine. Proper treatment is perceived as the cure, not the favor of evil spirits. One other very common method of first aid treatment has been the use of a snake bite kit. A tourniquet and razor blade are used to assist in the removal of the venom by means of suction.
Okay, I'm going to cut you. Are you ready?
Unfortunately, despite good intention, this treatment is ineffective and leaves the victim with another complication, bleeding. Scientifically, antivenin is really the only accepted treatment for poisonous snake bites. But in many remote areas, the victim dies before the antidote can be obtained or administered. Wasting no time, Segundo has brought Richter to a nearby medical center 20 minutes upriver. The health promoter recognizes the gravity of the situation, carefully cleans the wound, and administers a newly developed first aid intervention, electrical shock. The idea for this innovative first aid treatment came, as far as anyone knows, by accident. A farm journal magazine published a story about a farmer who was allergic to bee stings. One day, while working in his field, he was stung. Rushing for his medicine, he forgot about the electric fence that surrounded his field.
He grabbed hold of the wire, and you know what that does. I don't know if you ever grabbed an electric fence wire. And he found out that he didn't react to the venom, to the sting.
A seed was planted, and several years later, Dr. Ron Guderian was the first to begin exploring the possibility of using this treatment on venomous snake bites. Guderian's research found support from other medical professionals who were making similar observations, applying electric current to scorpion and insect bites. Veteran missionary Dr. James Probst wrote Dr. Guderian regarding his findings in Africa.
Dear Dr. Guderian, I'm writing because of my interest in your work regarding the use of high-voltage electric treatment of all types of venom-related injuries. First reaction on my part was, I wonder what kind of witch doctor treatment this can be. Keeping the idea in mind, however, I had a first-hand chance to try it in northern Kenya on scorpion stings. We used one of the plug wires of a running engine. Thinking back over several cases of fatal snake bites, I wish I'd known about the treatment years ago.
Dr. Guderian's frequent travels to river communities of the western Ecuadorian jungle give him access to many victims of stings and bites, the worst of these being those of poisonous snakes and the destructive power of their venom.
The venom that we have here, we've been able to separate the venom. We have 28 different components in the snake venom, in the viper. Those 28 substances are enzymes. I don't know if you know an enzyme. An enzyme has a biological activity. It eats, it destroys. What does it do? If it gets into the bloodstream, it opens up your blood vessels. And so your blood fuses out. If it gets into your blood, it destroys your red blood cells. It just eats them. And then where you're bitten, it eats up all the tissue around it, okay? So it's tremendously proteolytic. And why is it that? Because these enzymes are to digest the animals that the snakes catch for their food. So it's a natural thing.
With such horrifying symptoms and the virtual non-existence of antivenin in the jungle, it's easy to imagine why Dr. Guderian and his co-workers were desperate to find immediate and accessible treatment. But could they safely run the risk of electrically shocking their patients?
We discussed it. Okay, what are the implications? What are the positive and what's the negative? In other words, if you give someone a shock like that, what are you doing to him that could hurt him?
It wasn't long before Dr. Guderian was confronted with that very decision. A young man was brought into the village with a poisonous snake bite.
There, what do? There's nothing. There's no snake antivenom. There's not a thing we could do. He came in already with his leg all swollen, oozing. And we put a wire onto the spark plug. Then we took the other end right where he was bitten, and we just had another guy pull it. So we shocked him, and we shocked him well. Next day, everyone was there wanting to see what was happening. His snake bite. No swelling, no pain, no nothing.
Dr. Guderian arrived in Ecuador in 1974 to direct the clinical laboratory of Hospital Los Andes in Quito. With time, he began to focus on the development of caravans, taking health care to outlying villages. Ron and his team treated injuries and illnesses, taught preventive medicine, and pulled teeth. In those rural communities, diseases were encountered for which they had no treatment. Guderian began to study these diseases and to research ways to handle them. He focused on developing a program to control onchocerciasis, or river blindness. His efforts with this disease have resulted in a model for treatment that is now accepted by international health organizations and is being used in various parts of the world. At the same time, Dr. Guderian began to gather data on the experimental use of shock as first aid intervention. He was impressed with the need for significant research which would address the frequency and severity of snake bites in developing countries. Jean-Marc Touzé, one of the world's leading herpetologists, describes the problem of poisonous snake bites.
En el Ecuador tenemos aproximadamente 200 especies de serpientes, de las cuales 30 especies potencialmente muy peligrosas para el hombre, entre Botrops, fer de lance, Lachesis, Bushmaster, y también serpiente coral, pero las que son más problemáticas son pit vipers, las serpientes que tienen fosetas térmicas que causan muchos problemas. Bueno, el hecho de estar en un país desarrollado implica, desgraciadamente, que al mismo tiempo estemos en un país donde hay bastantes variedades de culebras y bastantes variedades de culebras venenosas. Por ejemplo, hay mucho más culebras venenosas aquí que en países templados. Desgraciadamente, los problemas inherentes a mordedura de serpientes son mucho más graves porque muchas veces no hay infraestructura médica, no hay sueros, por ejemplo, entonces los accidentes son siempre graves.
A constant obstacle is the limited access to antivenin. It's costly to produce and must be refrigerated. To make this antibody, venom is milked from a live snake by placing its fangs into a jar and squeezing its head. The venom is dried and then injected into the bloodstream of horses. In developing countries, these horses are often weak and sickly, producing impotent antivenom that carries its own diseases. With all these limitations, Guderian's research began to draw attention. First, as a letter to the editor of the Lancet Medical Journal in Britain. Then an article appeared in Outdoor Life Sporting Magazine. Interest in the method and practice grew. People around the world began to use shock treatment on venomous stings and bites of all types. Mission agencies built or adapted various devices to produce the right kind of electrical current. Letters from all over arrived in Quito telling of successes and requesting further information. As the practice spread, skeptical snake experts and medical professionals became more vocal.
Well, for this treatment to become accepted for official use around the world, very clearly there has to be studies in the laboratory first, preferably, that indicate that this works, and something that suggests why it works, some rationale for why this works. And then certainly field trials in a proper scientific fashion.
Dr. John Walden, a tropical medicine specialist at Marshall School of Medicine, puts forth the challenge.
I think we have to get away from anecdotal information and we have to get down to hardcore data. Does this work? Does it not work? It's as simple as that. And there's surely some way of finding that out.
In spite of questions surrounding the use of shock, Dr. Guderian was invited to speak at the International Congress of Tropical Medicine in November of 1992. Entitled Electrical Shock as a First Aid Measure in Snake Bites, his paper explained the research that had been carefully documented on more than 300 cases during the previous 10 years. Although to date there is no conclusive evidence that electric shock detoxifies snake venom, the value of Guderian's shock treatment is manifest in other ways.
Let's talk about the benefit. Let's say that doesn't do anything to destroy the activity of the snake venom. But what are the positive things? It's killing the bacteria so you don't get an abscess. You're taking away pain. It's efficient. Okay, because it's a help to the patient.
But why does an electric current counteract the effects of a snake bite or bee sting? Dr. Guderian explains one theory.
You react to a bee sting because your cells recognize a certain toxin by its shape. All right? There's a receptor site on the cell. When that toxin comes, it's recognized by the receptor site. That starts a chain reaction, and then you get the allergy response, your anaphylactic response. The Germans now have shown if you hit that with an electric current, like we're doing over here, again, you're changing the polarity of these toxins, which are small little molecules, changes formation. It's not recognized now in the receptor site, you have a reaction.
In Ecuador, Missionary Aviation Fellowship pilot Gene Jordan has seen the positive effects of electric shock treatment.
I'm not a scientist, but I've seen a difference between people that have been zapped within an hour of being bitten and those who haven't. And those who have been zapped react far better than those who have not.
Gene has used the treatment on snake bites 2 to 3 dozen times in the remote jungle areas where he flies.
Well, I decided that if I was going to zap them, I would zap myself first to see what it felt like. And it's quite a jolt. It kicks your leg out, but I'd rather have that pain than the pain of the bite.
First-hand eyewitness accounts from a jungle pilot, a respected herpetologist, and a veteran clinical researcher of tropical diseases, along with literally hundreds of similar experiences from around the world. The volume of convincing testimonies simply cannot be ignored. Extensive scientific research and clinical investigation are still ahead. Pioneering missionaries like Ron Guderian are committed to the task, but will continue to depend